just tell my story.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, y'all. Hey, it's a new episode of Bonafide Her podcast featuring Memphis track and field Riley Simmons. How you doing, girl?
I'm doing good. Getting through this weather over here.
Girl, it is cold.
Yes, I'm a Florida girl, so I don't handle this very well.
Oh, for real?
Yes, I'm from Florida.
I ain't never been to Florida, but
it.
So let's get this started. So Miss Riley, can you tell us like how you got started and like just your whole complete journey?
Yeah. I kind of have a crazy journey through college, but basically before college, I was a gymnast for 12 years. Believe it or not, that's what I do now. A lot of people are surprised by that, but gymnastics is like what started athletics for me. So I was a gymnast for 12 years, and then I stopped doing gymnastics right before high school. My body just couldn't take it anymore, and I'm obviously 6 feet tall, so you don't see very many tall gymnasts. And I knew I wanted to be a college athlete. So, and I knew gymnastics probably wasn't going to take me there, so I wanted to try out some sports that my height was going to work in my advantage. So I went to high school. I played basketball. I swam. I was like, I want to do something in track and field. I didn't really know what. I started thinking like pole vault and running, but that was not the right thing at all. But I started falling in love with like lifting weights. So I think when I fell in love with lifted weights was kind of what made me go into throwing. I had a coach come up to me. He was like, you should just try throwing. And I was like, throwing? Like, what even is that? Like, I had no idea what it was. In high school, it's kind of disrespected. Like, a lot of people just kind of see it as like the sport that people just go to just say they play a sport. But so I kind of just like gave it a chance, but I was very skeptical. But like the first week of practice, I went home and like started Googling like Olympic throwers. Like I just wanted to see who the professional girls were, like who's the best of the best, what they're looking like, what they're doing. And I fell in love. Like I found this one girl, her name is Maggie Ewan, and she's a shot putter. And I just like fell in love. She's a super athletic, like she's just a complete like freak of nature. And I just was like, I want to be like her. So that's when I really got serious with it. I was like, I could really do this in college. Like, let's just try it out. So I was super lucky to be very successful in high school. Like high school went really well for me. I ended up winning my state championship my senior year. And then I came 7th at nationals, and I was ranked number 3 in the nation at one point. So high school was great. Like I felt great in high school. Like things were going really well. Obviously going through COVID through 2020 was like a big downfall for track and field for me because I graduated high school in 2021. I'm 20 years old. So my junior year was when COVID hit and all that. Sorry, that's my dog back there. So COVID kind of canceled my whole junior season so that kind of took me down a little bit with recruiting and stuff like that. But college coaches kind of understood, and I basically got recruited through Instagram. I know that sounds crazy, but I made an Instagram page. Like I named it Riley Simmons Throws. And I got recruited through just posting videos like in my garage. I was like posting like lifting videos in my garage, like me just doing like throwing drills in my garage. Like it was crazy how that happened. But I say to this day, like I would not be a college thrower if it wasn't for that Instagram page. So it's kind of crazy. But so I got recruited. Things were going really well. I wasn't able to take visits because of COVID, obviously. So that was kind of hard. And like, I'm sure speaking with a lot of athletes like you have, recruiting is just a lot of lying and a lot of selling people things that they want to hear over the phone. So that was just really easy for coaches to do when athletes didn't get to go visit schools. So I ended up signing with Mississippi State University out of high school. I was so excited being in the SEC. Like they had great throwers. Like I was hyped. Like it was great. But once I got there, and I'll never speak down on any coaches or anybody, but it just was not what I needed. I came from a very disciplined background as a gymnast and in high school, and I'm used to coaches kind of being on me, like keeping me disciplined, giving me training plans, like the more the better for me. And it was just very kind of like a laid back, relaxed environment that I wasn't thriving in. There was I have very strong religious beliefs and political beliefs that I used to share a lot online until I got too torn up for it through college athletics, and I kind of stopped sharing that online. And my coach didn't agree with a lot of what I believed in. A lot of my teammates didn't agree with a lot of what I believed in. So that resulted in me kind of feeling like I was treated a certain way because of that, which kind of stunk, but like just the way it was. I got really sick while I was at Mississippi State and ended up losing like almost 30 pounds. And as a thrower, that's not good at all. You have to be very big and very strong and be able to move a lot of weight. So I wasn't really able to do that. So through kind of all of these circumstances, like I was told that like this was kind of in my head. I was trying to lose weight on purpose. Like a lot of just really messed up things were happening through this whole period of time. So I decided to end up redshirting, not wasting a year at Mississippi State, and redshirting and basically getting in the transfer portal with still 4 years. Kind of like I was just a brand new freshman again, a fresh start. So I got in the transfer portal, and I had a great experience with recruiting the second time. I ended up committing to Auburn University. I went on a visit, met the coach, met the athletes, like loved everything about it. And about 2 weeks before I was supposed to move to Auburn, I signed a lease. Like I was set in stone. And my throws coach called me, and he was like he did not sound good at all. Like he sounded really upset. And I was like, what's going on? And he said, we just hired a new head coach, and he cut 5 thrower scholarships, and he's bringing in sprinters to replace these scholarships from the previous school that he came to. And I was like, I'm sitting in my room, like I just transferred from somewhere, like there's no way this is happening. I just told all these coaches no and committed. I made a whole post about it. Like it was public and everything. So I kind of looked at my mom and I'm like, should I even stay in track and field at this point? Like this is my first kind of doubt of like, should I still be doing this? But then I was like, all right, you know what? That's just stupid to think. Let me not. I'm really supposed to go do big things in college off of what I did in high school. So let me just give it another try. So I called back Florida State, which was a school that recruited me out of the portal that I also loved. I'm from Florida, so I just wanted something different. That's the only reason I didn't pick Florida State over Auburn. Like they were both neck and neck. So I called the Florida State coach and I was like, hey, does my offer still stand? And he understood everything. He was super sweet about it, but I no longer had my scholarship offer because it was already given to a jumper. So like there was no money on the table. But if I were to be a walk-on anywhere, it would be more doable in Florida because I'm from Florida. So in-state tuition was almost more doable for me. So I was like, you know what? This coach is one of the best in the nation. I made the sacrifice. My parents made the sacrifice just to let me go and do this for a year and hopefully earn back that scholarship next year. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So I signed with Florida State as a walk-on. I went and I was like, this is going to be worth it. I was there for like 2 weeks and I loved every bit of it. So during those 2 weeks, our coach sat us down and he was like, let's have a meeting. I'm just thinking it's like a beginning of the year meeting. Like, I'm like, everything's going great. And he was like, I just need to let y'all know. Like, he's also sounded awful again. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's he about to say? And he was like, I just took a job at the University of Kansas and I'm going to be leaving in like a week and a half. And we're all sitting there like, oh my gosh. And like everybody, all my teammates around me were like crying, like super upset. And like, I just couldn't get myself to that point because I was so angry at this point. Like everything has worked against me and I still haven't been able to compete. And I don't know, like, am I just making the wrong decisions? Like, I don't know what's going on, but everything was working against me. So he was like, listen, y'all just stay here. Like, we're going to bring in a good coach. It's Florida State University. Like, just hold it out. So we were coachless for almost 7 weeks, like training by ourselves, like a whole fall training block, which fall training is very important in track and field. So we're kind of just training by ourselves, like getting by, lifting. Like, obviously training without a coach is not ideal. So we're then told that we have this amazing guy coming in. And I heard his name. I kind of knew of him, and I was excited again. I was like, all right, cool. He's got some great accolades behind his name. Like, this is going to be great. So then I reached out to our head coach. I'm like, hey, like, when's he coming? Like, when's our coach going to get here? And he was like, listen, like, he's not coming anymore. He signed with a different school. And so I was like, well, who is going to be our coach? Like, do we have anybody coming in? And so he says, we just signed a guy. Y'all will meet him in about a week. So I'm like, okay. Basically, we signed somebody from a different school. And again, I don't speak poorly on coaches or anything like that, but it was kind of the same feel I had at Mississippi State. It's very laid back, very little training programs. Every single one of my teammates hopped into the portal within like 3 weeks. And like, these were my best friends, my training partners. Whatever was going to keep me at Florida State had a lot to do with who I was training with. And they were all gone now. So, like, I was really the last one to, like, I'm like, can I even get in the portal at this point? Like, I've already transferred technically twice. So, is this even allowed? Like, I don't want to lose eligibility. So, this is kind of where my whole journey of, like, knowing that everything happened because of God's plan. Because I went to compliance, and I was like, what can I do? I need to get out of here. I need to go somewhere where I'm going to thrive. I can't give up on track yet. Like, I need to go somewhere else. And everybody thought I was crazy. I've had everybody say some crazy things about me, coaches, athletes, friends, like so many things. Like, why is this girl just hopping around? Why can't she just stay somewhere? But nobody was really in my situation. So it's like I never let that get to me because I couldn't stay anywhere I was. So compliance was basically like, I don't think you can transfer. Like, I think you have to lose a year of eligibility. Like maybe if you graduate, but like I was only like just starting my sophomore year. Like there's no way I could graduate anytime soon. So I then got an email from compliance, like maybe 2 weeks later. That was like, Riley, come back to my office. Like I have some news for you. And I was like, okay. Basically, compliance said I was able to get into the transfer portal and sign with another school without losing eligibility strictly because I was not on scholarship. So if they paid me even $1 at Florida State, I would not be able to transfer without losing eligibility.
What?
So, yeah. So when I heard that, like I almost had this like crazy like weight lifted off my shoulder. No matter how upset I was and how angry I was at everything, like I was like, if they were even paying me books at this point, I wouldn't be able to transfer. I wouldn't be able to get out of this situation. So the fact that I was there as a walk-on, which was not an ideal situation for me, it's not what I wanted for me or my family, because I was there as a walk-on was the only reason that I was able to get out. So I took that and ran with it. I got in the portal. Basically, I talked to 3 different coaches that I trusted, like big name coaches, and I was like, listen, I'm done with the Power 5. I don't want to go to a big school. This is not happening for me anymore. I want to go to a small school where I'm prioritized, where I'm like just treated like I want to be. I want to feel like I'm a priority. I want to feel important. I want to feel like I'm given what I need to reach my goals, but I also want to be under a good coach. So like, who is it in the smaller Division I schools where I can still make a Division I nationals and reach my goals? But where's this coach at that's not just going to up and leave if he gets a better job? You know what I'm saying? So I had 3 separate people say Coach Rob at Memphis. Like, just say it. Like, Coach Rob at Memphis, that's who I can see you with. Like, he's going to discipline you. He's going to believe in you. Like, he's going to give you what you need. He's the head coach. He's the throws coach. Like, perfect. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me get in the portal. Let me wait a little bit, and I'll reach out to him the next morning. So I wake up the next morning, and I had already had a message from him, like, in my Instagram DMs, like, trying to recruit me. And I didn't even reach out to him yet. So it was like some crazy coincidence. Like he didn't know who I was through all of this. Like he believed my entire story, which so many coaches did not believe my story. My Mississippi State coach, like she talked and she got a lot of coaches to turn away from me. I've had many coaches not believe anything I said through recruiting, which is fair. Like going to this many schools as an athlete is hard to believe my story. But he was one person that didn't even ask me a question. He was like, I know everything you've been through. I know all the people that you've had to deal with. Like, I believe everything you're saying. And now I'm here and I absolutely love it. Like, I genuinely have never been a better person, better athlete. Like, I'm chasing so many different things that I want to, not just athletically, but I've gone into motivational speaking. That's like my dream is to be a sports motivational speaker. So I'm using this story to basically travel around to different high schools and churches and tell this story and motivate and inspire other athletes. So yeah, that was very long-winded, but that's kind of my whole journey until now.
It's all good. That's why I said the floor is yours, girl. And somebody said they love the dog cameo. It's cute. He's so. Is it a she or he?
It's a he. I rescued him about a year ago, so
he's so cute.
My best friend.
So, what inspires you to be a motivational speaker?
So through like growing up, I've always had some kind of love for public speaking. Like literally any banquet, any funeral, any big event that I've had to be at, I usually am either asked to speak or volunteer to speak at. And I've just grown a love for like using my voice. I will be the first person to say I hate school, I hate writing, I hate reading, like any type of, and I'm so honest about it. Like school and listening to professors and sitting in the classroom is not for me. So the way that I love to learn is just talking. Like I love to just like use my words. I don't like to write things down and speak off of that. I just like to speak. So public speaking has kind of always been like a God-gifted thing for me. But really going through what I went through and then realizing that as I was posting more on social media and telling my story through like comments, how many people I was actually inspiring. Like I would get DMs like, oh my gosh, I went through that exact same thing and I never knew how to like overcome it. Or like, how are you still doing track and field? Or like, just I have so many girls and female athletes and little girls like asking me like, how did you do this? How did you like what was your mind going through? And it kind of pushed me to just like want to go and tell my story, like go and speak about it. And it really just started with me making videos and like posting videos to my Instagram and my TikTok. And then I actually reached out to a high school right when I got to Memphis, and I was like, I think this is something I want to do. So I emailed like 15 high schools here, and I got a response from one. And I went and I spoke to their female athletes, and it was like the coolest experience ever. Like the girls like had so many questions afterwards, and I went to all their volleyball games, and like I'm like this lifelong supporter of theirs, and it's just like I love that I can like go, and even if one of those little girls listens and gets something from it, like it's so rewarding. I've never had something more rewarding than going and speaking and getting feedback and like knowing that I helped somebody that I spoke to. So I really just love to public speak, but then knowing that I can use this story that I've gone through in my advantage has like really motivated me and made me feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's awesome. And man, you girl, at least hey, you speaking in this podcast, so that's more reason that
Right.
you love public speaking. So
Very true.
man, so you know with with the I noticed on one of your posts that track athletes don't get a lot of like say endorsements or opportunities of NIL as much as the other athletes.
Yeah.
Why do you believe that? Why do you believe it's one? Why do you believe that in from your perspective?
It honestly, it has a lot to do with just who watches the sport. I think Elena mentioned in her kind of podcast that I watched, like, we're not televised. Like, we're just not on the TV. Like, you don't turn on ESPN and see track and field. Like, you just don't. Like, I could turn on ESPN right now and probably see so many female sports, but you're not going to see track and field. So it's not really just me being a female athlete. I think it happens for track and field athletes in general, male or female. I think track and field's entertaining to watch, but I'm probably biased for that. But it's really not televised enough. I don't think people will literally like ask me what sport I play, and I'm like, oh, I'm a thrower, and I'm like, what is that? Like people just genuinely don't know it. You know what I mean? Like people that don't really know athletics well. Like I've had so many people ask me like, what is that? Or like if they see a video of like throwing the hammer, which the hammer is a little bit more rare than like a shot put or a discus, but like people are like, what is that called? So like I just don't think there's enough attention brought to it. I've been like mistaken for a softball player and a volleyball player literally every day. So like those are just like very stereotypical sports that that's where they see female athletics at, and it's sad, but I think it is growing. I think I do see like light coming into track and field, especially with people like Ryan Krauser and Chase Ely, these huge shot putters in the game right now. Like they're breaking world records. It's kind of hard to go unnoticed when you're breaking world records. So like I think especially American throwing, like it's definitely coming into play more because European throwing is like the thing. Like if you're in Europe, you know what throwing is. Like European throwing is like football here in my book. Like it's crazy how famous and how like well known it is in other countries. But I think we're slowly growing. It's really just the fact that track and field is not televised. You don't see it anywhere. Like you have to Google it on YouTube or find live links to even go and watch track meets. Even at the biggest schools, like to go watch an University of Alabama or University of Arkansas, like you have to go find a live link. And that's so crazy to me. Like, why is it not on ESPN like any other sport? So yeah, it's just little things like that. I feel like track and field is just not watched enough.
Yeah, because like honestly, I do see some track athletes that are what's it called? They're shown a lot in their social media too. Like, and I feel like at times it's like, at times it seems like they get endorsed, but it's like, why is not everyone else get endorsed just as they are too? Like, and do you? And I'm very familiar with the thrower thing because I tried shot put. Okay. I didn't get to play in high school, but I tried it. I almost kept thinking like, say if I throw it the wrong way, I might hit my neck. I'm like, did I? But is the hammer the thing you spin around and then just throw it?
Yes, it's like basically a long wire with a shot put at the end of the wire.
Oh,
Yeah.
y'all just strong. And I noticed that track and field, they're usually televised during the Olympics. That's when like a
Right.
lot of people like kind of know about it. But
Yes.
um but like I said, I didn't realize it was huge in Europe, like the throwing and
It's
stuff.
crazy over there.
So my question is like in the era of NIL, how has it made an impact in both your academics and athletics as well as your life?
So with NIL for me, it's been a struggling journey. I finally got an NIL agent actually, right when I transferred from Florida State to Memphis, and I had really not done anything through NIL. I've gotten like a free T-shirt and posted on Instagram, but like that's about it. So it was just like nothing was, and especially at Florida State, they actually had an NIL like I don't know what they're called, like platform through Florida State called Rising Spear. So like they did NIL through their school, and track and field never got an opportunity. Like we would constantly see baseball, softball, volleyball. Like they did these like huge photo shoots and like cameos and like videos and like all these cool things. Like track and field was never told about it. So that was a problem in itself. But going from Florida State to Memphis, I knew I was going to struggle even more because it's just the name of the game. If you're at a bigger school, you're probably going to get more NIL deals. It's just the way it is. It kind of stinks, but it's just how it is. So I knew going from a bigger school to a smaller school, it was going to be even harder. So I was like, okay, I trusted this agent. I knew him through like connections through when I was a gymnast. So I was like, let's see what this is. So he's gotten me a couple of opportunities here through like boosters. So Memphis is it's kind of a city that's all for University of Memphis. Like when you're in Memphis, there's Memphis Tigers everywhere. So it's like one of those cities that's just straight college town. Like everybody here loves the University of Memphis. So there's some boosters here that really want to support athletes and specifically female athletes. So the biggest impact that NIL has had on me is like when I got to Memphis, this booster basically paid me to go do community service in the community, anything that would help the community of Memphis. So I was like, okay, if I go and speak at a local high school in Memphis, will this count as something like a community service? And or I guess she responded or he responded and he was like, yeah, like this is great. I would love for you to go and speak to a high school. I think that would be awesome. So I was actually paid to go and speak and do something that I loved and wanted to do anyways that was going to help me. So that's how it affects it. Sorry, let me let him out really quick. He was wanting to leave. So yeah, that's basically the biggest impact I've had, which is sad because like I wish I could say I've had more opportunities, but like I'll get brands email me probably every day, but it's like ambassadors, like, oh, you'll have a code and somebody can buy it through your link and get commissions. And it's just like, that's kind of exhausting to me. Like, who's really gonna go and buy things through a link? And I just, it's not like NIL deals football players and basketball players and softball players are out here getting when they're like, here's 10K, go post this Instagram picture. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's not happening in track and field unless you're these huge name athletes. But I mean, I think NIL is hopefully slowly growing with me. I'm also just really working on growing my social media, so I think that's going to be a big part of it. Social media is really weird right now. The algorithm is really weird. Like,
Girl,
people
yes.
aren't getting attention. People aren't getting views. Like, I'm trying to work my way through that and figure out what's going on. But NIL is just kind of something that's slowly growing with me. But my agents definitely helped me a lot. It's not like a income I'm having or anything like that. But hopefully one day it will be. And I hope that's something that can kind of support my speaking like it has a couple of times, because I want to be able to like do something I love and also get funded for that. Like I don't want to be that athlete that's just posting for Taco Bell and like just things that I don't really care about. Like I don't want my social media just to become a bunch of ads. So I just want to be able to like get NIL through things that I believe in and that I want to support anyways. Because I think there's some athletes out there that are just doing stuff for money, and I don't want to be that athlete. I want to be able to do it because I support it or because it's helping me. So I think that's like a big misconception with NIL is people are just out here getting paid to do crazy things that they really don't even care about or like in the first place.
Girl, that was gonna be my next question too, and you answered it so well. Like I never thought of it, like how people just they just post it and just to say they did it with someone, but like,
Right.
do y'all actually use it? Do y'all actually like want to partner with them and stuff?
Exactly. Yeah. It's hard for me to see even like friends of mine, like they'll post for like just a company that they have never even used before. And I'm like, what are y'all doing out here? Like I understand the hustle. Like money's money, but at the end of the day, like the last thing I want to ever do is cheapen my name. And like I believe that you're not going to grow your social media if you're constantly just an ad on somebody's page because it's not authentic at that point. Like I'm out here editing videos for like 3 hours and getting like 2,000 views on it. Like it's hard out here, but at the end of the day, I want people to go back and like I want to have the same authenticity through my social media and through what I love to do. So if I go and post a speech that I had to pay for something to go do, it's still going to eventually get me in the future. It's going to benefit me in the future. So I don't want to just be out here posting brands that I don't even use or like or support. Like my NIL agent emailed me and he's like, what are some things that you like? What are some things you actually wear? What are some things that you're buying anyways that could maybe help you out? Like that's the kind of stuff that I want to do because then it's not changing who I am and what I like. Instead, it's just supporting things that I already loved and already wanted to support in the first place. So I think a lot of athletes kind of definitely have a misconception on that part of things.
Man, I didn't realize that for
Yes.
like. So, from your perspective, what are some things like what are some brands that you would want to work with? And do you hope like to see, you know, and I'm very familiar with Memphis, University of
Yeah.
Memphis because
Yeah.
of their sports
Mm-hmm.
and they're like high major level.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you say there are some brands that you would want to work with?
Specifically, like, I love small businesses. Like, I'm the first person to show it. I'm very, like, American. Like, I love my American businesses and I'm very patriotic. I have a whole American tattoo sleeve. I just love American history and kind of what has grown our country to where it is and why we have freedom. And I love all those things. So I've supported, like, American patriotic companies in the past. Lions Not Sheep is one. Nine Line is one. And they're just like they're small businesses, so that's why it's almost hard to make deals with them because they're already trying to make it in the first place themselves. But it's just like, I mean, obviously Nike's a huge one that I would love to be able to do something with because that's such a big name and that's what sponsors my school. So it's like that'd be a huge thing. But there's like just brands like things that I can come and speak like on podcasts like this or something that where I can get my voice out or I can go and make a t-shirt for giving something that inspired me, like a quote or something that represents me that I can go and share through a brand. That's like the brands that I want to work with. I mean, I think huge brands like Crocs and Nike and Adidas and all these things are great, but I want to be known that where I can make something of my own and not just put on Nike's new drop and go post a picture in it. Like I want to be able to have my own t-shirt with my signature on it for a company or my own podcast with somebody or something like that. And it's just like it's weird to think about companies like these huge big name companies because it's like how am I going to make my name in a huge company like that, but at the same time how am I going to make money in a small company? So it's like it's finding a fine line in between, like, okay, I want to work with these small businesses where I completely support them and love them, but at the same time I want to be able to benefit from companies as well. So yeah, it's hard. That's a hard question because I don't really know specific names. I have an NIL deal through Amazon right now that's actually helped me a lot. It's like an ambassador's NIL. It's basically like if I buy things from Amazon, I can put it on my Amazon storefront and then post about it because I love Amazon. Like Amazon's like my main clothing source, and then people will buy like through my Amazon storefront. So that's helped me a lot with funds. So Amazon's one that I'd love to keep working with and hopefully get up to the next step somewhere. But yeah, really just small businesses where I can continue to like put my name out and create my own lines within it. That's kind of like the dream.
I know a couple athletes that have like shirt lines and they sell it through Amazon. So,
Really? Okay.
mhm. So that's you were talking about merch, like that would be a start.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'd want to do for sure.
Yeah, because like people shop at Amazon, and hey, it goes straight too quick too.
Guys,
Like,
is it so easy to buy from?
girl. So, what was the experience like when you were speaking at the high school, as well as the one that you posted on your page?
Yeah. So the first high school I spoke to was Hamilton High School, and I was so nervous because like I'm just this girl walking into a high school. These kids don't know me. Like they don't know who I am. For all I care, like they're just like sitting there like, oh, I don't care to listen to this girl. Like it's high schoolers. Like you never know what you're gonna get out of a high schooler. So I was really nervous to like go and speak to them. But once I started, like I kind of like had an outline written down, and I told my story. Like once I kept looking at the girls more, like their eyes kind of started getting bigger, and like their facial expressions kind of started changing. Like, oh my gosh, that happened! Like they were like into it. So once I kind of saw them like almost interacting with what I was saying, like I relaxed so much, and it was so easy for me to just kind of like get it out. And like I've noticed every talk I've had, I've like written an outline, but I've never gone by the outline. Like every time I speak, it's like nothing of what I've written down. It's just whatever like just comes off at that point, like whatever I feel like the kids in front of me need to hear. Like, so I spoke at a high school to female athletes. There was a lot of cheerleaders, volleyball players, basketball players. And then I spoke to a gymnastics group, and I was a gymnast, so I could almost change my talk to target my gymnastics side of life and how gymnastics affected me and like what I went through as a gymnast, because I want to be able to speak to people and then relate. Like I want them to relate to what I went through and what happened to me. So like it's cool how I can kind of like take certain parts of my life, and sometimes I've spoken at churches, and that's where I can bring in like how Jesus has changed my life. Some high schools don't let me speak about Jesus, which is it's just the way life is, but it's great. It's really cool how I can kind of like tell people how Jesus changed my life, or I can tell people how I was inspired through certain people in my life, how gymnastics affected me, how track affected me. Like it's just I've really learned how to adapt to the audience that I'm speaking to, and that's something that I'm continuing to work on. But yeah, the first high school, it was very nerve wracking, but it was so rewarding because like they all came up to me and gave me big hugs afterwards, and they were like, "We have
Oh,
a volleyball game tomorrow night." And like when I walked into their volleyball game, they were like, "Oh my gosh, Miss Riley!" Because like it's crazy as a track athlete to be seen as like such this big person in somebody's life. Because like when we walk into a room as a track athlete, like we're not asking for like people aren't asking for our autographs like a football player or a basketball player. Like it's just not like that. So when I went to like these churches and stuff, like people were like asking me to sign their shirts and like take pictures with them, and it's just like it's not really for me, but that's just like such a part that like is really cool. Like I'm really meaning something to these kids, and that's helped me a lot mentally as well. Is like I'm really doing this for a bigger reason than just myself. So yeah, that's kind of I don't know if that answered your question, but
that answered perfectly. Because and you said you're really big. I noticed you're really big in your faith. So how do you balance your faith with athletics and academics?
mm-hmm.
And what scripture would you describe your journey?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I would say my faith really got strong probably from Florida State to Memphis was probably when it got the strongest. But I've been on a journey of faith since high school. It was very strong in high school, but it's easy to say your faith is very strong when you're on top of the world. Like when you're on top of the world, winning everything, doing great, nothing's wrong in your life. Like it's great to say that your faith's super strong and that you're, going to these youth groups and having fun every week at church. But when college hit me, Mississippi State, Florida State, I kind of just fell into that dark hole. Like I fell into just college life around me. Like when I didn't have track and field, I felt like my life crumbled to the floor. Because when I was at Mississippi State and when I was at Florida State, my first 2 years of college, I made track and field my whole identity. Like if track and field was not going well, Riley was not doing well. Like don't speak to Riley if track and field is not going well. And I didn't want that for my life. So I realized quickly, like, I need something else. Something else has to be in my life when track and field is not going well. So while I was at Florida State, I don't know if you've heard of FCA before. It's Fellowship of Christian Athletes. It's like a club at schools where a bunch of athletes come into, and we get to kind of have like small church services. It was a big thing at Mississippi State, and I went to a couple meetings here and there, but like wasn't like really like into it. So at Florida State, I kind of asked around. I was like, "Do y'all have FCA here? Because I need something. Like my coach just left. I need something right now. Like track's not going well. I need something else." And I actually reached out, and they were like, no, we don't have it. We haven't had it since before COVID. So I was like, that's really weird. Like, y'all are a huge ACC school. Y'all need FCA. So I actually got in touch with the pastor that works for football at Florida State, and they were like having a meeting inside of a room. And I walked in, and they were talking about FCA. It was so weird how it happened. But like me and my friend Ella, we walked into this room, and they were having a meeting about starting FCA again. And we had walked in, and we were like, is this FCA? And they were like, well, we haven't really started it yet, but we're talking about it. You want to come talk? And we literally sat there in that room and like created FCA in Florida State. And it was just insane how it happened. But so we started that week, and we built each week and started having clubs, and more athletes every week just kept coming, and we ended up having like 45 athletes at our end of the year party. So like starting FCA at Florida State kind of kept me distracted from the fact that I didn't have a coach, that I wasn't throwing well, that nothing was going good in life on that side of my life. So FCA at Florida State, like I will say 100% that truly changed my life. So then when I came to Memphis, like that was instantly like one of the first things I asked, like, is there FCA? Who's the person? Who do I need to talk to? And they had it, but they had like 10 people come each week. Like it was very small, very like intimate, like not a huge thing there. And so I started going to meetings, and it actually started to grow. Like the year I came, it was weird how it happened, but like people just started showing up. And so I actually just got put on the leadership board of FCA like last semester, near the beginning of the semester. So that's been amazing for me. Like it's so hard to, and it shouldn't be hard, but it is really hard to juggle Christianity, schoolwork, and sports all into one. Like finding time for all of that is hard sometimes, but when you have one day a week and one day a week where so many athletes can come into a room and worship God together, like that's been like the coolest thing ever. So being on that leadership team has definitely like helped my faith kind of stay intact. Obviously, like I try and get in the Word myself every day and speak to my family and speak to friends and like that are out of FCA, but FCA is kind of what keeps me in line because I have to speak at FCA. So when you have to speak and give a sermon, it makes you go and study the Word. So now every morning when I go and study the Word, I'm trying to prepare a talk for FCA, and it's almost like it's tricking me to study in the Bible when I'm preparing to go speak. So I think that's been such a huge blessing. When it comes to Bible verses, my favorite Bible verse is Galatians 5:1. It is for Christ that He has set us free, stand firm. I have a tattoo on my arm right here.
Hey.
But I just really think that it's like the freedom verse. It basically like it shows me that Christ gives us freedom even when we feel like we're not free. Kind of like at Mississippi State when I felt like I was just in a bubble by myself. Like I was restricted from being treated a certain way because of things that I chose to do in my life. I just feel like that verse like makes me feel like we really are free. Like you're free to go and tell somebody about Jesus, and we're not going to get in trouble for it. And I think that's something that as Americans we take for granted. Some countries you can't do that. Like some countries you can't own a Bible. You can't go and speak about the Lord. So knowing that I have the freedom to live for Christ and hopefully bring other people to Christ is something that like feels so rewarding every single day. So that's definitely like easily my favorite Bible verse, that we can just live in freedom every day, and it's our decision to do that. So, yeah.
Hey, I know Galatians 5 usually talks about like the fruit of the spirit. That's the one that I've known about. I know for me, I would say my favorite scriptures was like, of course, Philippians 4:13. Always people be like, well, if you're an athlete, for Philippians 4:13, you gonna like it. But it's like a lot of people don't understand like some of the scriptures they actually coordinate with other scriptures. So it's like they cross each other. Like it's like, oh, okay, so
right. They all intertwine with each other.
Yes, and you mentioned like the transfer portal. What's the transfer portal process like, and what's the misconceptions of the transfer portal?
I'll definitely say I was blessed to have a good experience my first time in the transfer portal. Like I said, in high school, I had like very successful numbers. So I basically was still getting recruited off of my high school numbers because I didn't compete at Mississippi State. So everybody kind of was confused on like me going to Mississippi State in the first place, which like that's nothing towards Mississippi State, but it was just like a certain coaching pick that kind of shocked everybody. So my transfer process and being in the transfer portal the first time, like it was great. Coaches were calling me and texting me, and everything was going really well. The only thing that I will say the first time in the transfer portal is my coach at Mississippi State. She has kind of a group of people that she would speak to and that she was very close with. And those coaches did not recruit me or they did not respond to me or they did not. I had a visit set up with one of them and it was canceled very quickly. So like I saw a theme happening, and that is sad. But at the end of the day, I think I said this to my dad one time, like if that type of coach was like who I was with, I don't want them to be my coach anyways. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise. Like I don't want you to be my coach anyways. So it's that bothered me for a little bit because I mean I was telling the truth of my story and coaches were thinking that a whole nother story. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's if they're gonna believe a certain story, I didn't want them to be my coach anyway. So the recruiting process the first time was great. Like I went on a visit to Missouri, Florida State, and Auburn, and it was great. When I got into the transfer portal the second time was when coaches were like, okay, this girl doesn't know how to stay somewhere. Like this girl, what is going on? Why is she back in the portal? There was very few coaches that would speak to me. And that was mentally draining. And I just think like the misconception about the transfer portal, and I'm going to leave football, basketball, and baseball out of this opinion of mine because I believe football, basketball, and baseball, the transfer portal is very hurtful right now. A lot of people are getting in the transfer portal to go make millions of dollars. But for track and field, we're not going to do that. We're not getting in the transfer portal to go make $1 million because nobody's making $1 million in track and field. So I believe like if you're an athlete, especially a female athlete, and you're in the transfer portal, you're probably in there for a good reason to you. Like you're in there because you believe that you can go find somewhere else that you're going to thrive better or that you're going to go chase your goals better. And I believe like so many people have a misconception like there's no loyalty in the sport anymore. Like people don't stay at a school anymore. Like if they don't compete well, they think it's their coach's fault. And there are some athletes that are like that. Like there are some athletes that maybe jump to conclusions too quick and go and hop in the transfer portal. But with my certain experience, I definitely look out for the athletes that have to get in the transfer portal. Like they got in the transfer portal because they had to, no matter if it was for their physical health, their mental health, like whatever it may be, just because that school was not for them. That happened to me 4 times. So like I'm definitely a strong advocate for the transfer portal. It changed my life and I'm very grateful for it. But some struggles are definitely just people believing your story. Like some coaches just aren't going to believe an athlete, and that's just the sad truth. But like I said, you don't want that coach to be your coach anyways. So if that's the case, and if you're an athlete getting in the transfer portal and people aren't recruiting you, look to the people who do believe you. And that's why, like, when I was in the transfer portal coming into Memphis, Coach Rob was one that believed me. So, like, I stuck with him because he believed me. So I didn't have to go and talk to 15, 20 coaches the second time because I felt so confident about him. Like, I kind of had to swallow my pride a little bit. Like, I was the girl out of high school that was like, big school, big school, big school. I got to be in the SEC. I got to be in the ACC. Like, I needed to go to this big school to go and impress everybody. But what I learned through the transfer portal is big schools, like, they may work for some people, but it's not going to be for everybody, no matter how good of an athlete you are. Like, I found my coach and my place and my people at a smaller school, and that's just the way it worked. So I personally think the transfer portal is great. Like I said, I'm leaving football, baseball, and basketball kind of out of that because I believe that money and NIL has ruined so many things with their sports. But I think definitely misconceptions is just coaches not believing your story and people just thinking that you're not staying loyal to a school, but when in actuality you might just need to get out. So yeah.
Yeah, because like I've seen a whole list of people that's transfer portals and sometimes like, dang, like you can't keep up. Like at this point, it's like a list. I'm like, y'all, like, and then I think some of the schools that people choose the first time, I feel like sometimes it's under the influence of what the other person wants them to where they go to instead of like where they really want to go to and who has the best interest in them.
Right.
But I always ask my guests this question. So Bonafide means authentic, and Miss Riley, I just want to know what makes you bona fide and what makes your story unique from others.
Honestly, like I think what makes my story unique is the fact that like I'm willing to share my story. I think a lot of people aren't willing to share their story, especially the ugly parts. Like I'm willing to share the ugly parts of my story if I can help somebody. What has been the most eye-opening thing over the last year is like social media is the most fake, most like highlight of people's lives that I've ever seen. And that's something that I've tried to change about myself so much. Like, I want to post my bad throws just as much as I want to post my good throws. Like, I think what makes me unique is like, I'm real. Like, I want to look good in pictures and I want to post good pictures and I want to, I want to have that side of me as well because that's cool and that makes me happy and that's a passion of mine. But at the same time, like, I want to post the ugly. I want to post the ugly sides of my story that people don't get to hear because the ugly is what's going to help somebody because that's what they don't hear a lot. Like when they see me go and face plant at a meet, like I just posted 2 weeks ago, like people don't see that. So I just think what makes me unique is like I'm willing to be real with people. I'm willing to tell the truth, no matter if it hurts people's feelings or not. I'm willing to share the ins and the outs of what I've gone through if that means that I get to help somebody who maybe went through the same thing and they're scared to talk about it. I was scared to death to talk about my political beliefs and what I had to go through. I chose not to get the COVID-19 vaccine, and I was completely just treated awfully at Mississippi State for that. People were given $200 Adidas gift cards in front of my face because I didn't have the vaccine, and they did. I was completely told that I was a disease by a teammate and that they didn't want to be around me because I didn't have it in my body. Like, I was scared to share things like that because I've been taken down so much by my political and religious beliefs. But at the end of the day, that's who I am and that's what's made me who I am. And I'm not scared to come out and say those things anymore because I've had so many people reach out to me after I finally shared that story. I had people reach out to me like, "Oh my gosh, I transferred because I didn't have it. I had a coach tell me this. This happened to me. This happened to me." Like so many people started actually coming out and telling me that the same thing they were going through, but everybody was scared to talk about it. Everybody's scared to say the ugly. And I think what makes me unique is that I'm not scared to say the ugly. I want people to be inspired and motivated off of the ugly that I've gone through so that they're not scared anymore or they don't think that they're weird or they don't think that they're all alone in this little bubble by themselves when I went through the same exact thing. It's just people on social media don't share things like that in their lives. So that's kind of why I want to be speaking. Like I want to be able to share everything with people just so that I can help at least one person. And that's kind of why I'm trying to change social media to not just be highlight reels of my life. Instead, it's the real stuff of my life. So, yeah.
Hey, the real and the raw is usually the best way, the best truth.
Yes.
That's why I was like, this is real and raw. So I was like about this podcast because
yeah, I love it.
There be bloopers sometimes, but like, look, you getting what you getting, so you better enjoy the content. So, Miss Riley, can you tell us where people can like support you and how they can support you, and if you have any events coming up?
Yeah, so my biggest support kind of platform right now is really Instagram. That's where I'm posting most of my videos and kind of things I'm doing and talks I'm having. So definitely my Instagram, it's just Riley.Simmons with 2 extra S's on the end. So Riley.SIMMONSSS. So that's my Instagram. I also have a TikTok. It's the same username. That's kind of where I post, like, that's kind of where I can be myself. Like, I just post, like, funny, like, just things. Like, some of them are serious, some are funny. Like, that. I love that platform. So TikTok as well. I'm on TikTok. I do have an open doors account. So if it comes to, like, people, like, actually wanting to support me NIL-wise, I have an open doors account, and that's just my name as well, Riley Simmons. I have my open doors actually linked in my Instagram. So everything that I have is really linked in my bio on Instagram. But the most support that I can really get right now is just watching what I'm doing through my social media because that's where I'm trying to grow and that's where I'm trying to build my career off of. I don't have any events set up right now. I just spoke at a mental health event back at home And there's a lot of like highlights on that and videos. I'm continuing to post content and videos from all of my talks that I've been doing. So if you want to be inspired or motivated or anything like that, I post stuff like weekly on that type of thing. So definitely my Instagram, and anything else beyond that is linked in my Instagram.
You guys heard it first. Y'all better support and follow Miss Riley Simmons.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Bonafide Her podcast. You guys will tune in. Thank you guys. Enjoy.